welcome back to another episode of the Table Network. I'm here with Chris and Kinsey. I am Zach. And in this episode, we're talking about our deepest, darkest fears. So let's just start. Did you guys have childhood fears?
I was scared of the dark.
Check.
The Easter Bunny. Didn't want him coming anywhere near me. Yeah. My mom had to write letters
You're kidding.
to the Easter Bunny so that he wouldn't come upstairs into my room because I was so terrified.
That is hilarious.
That worked. That letter gave you peace of mind.
Oh, yeah.
And you weren't scared about
Yeah. I was like, he'll read the letter and he won't come upstairs to my room. We'll be just fine.
To be fair, most kids should be a little more questioning of a giant bunny that lays chocolate eggs.
Yeah.
But
we're not, yeah.
Well, I was.
Okay,
So.
fair enough.
I think that's all I can think of right
do you
now.
carry any of these fears with you into adulthood?
Oh, and I used to be scared of thunderstorms.
Okay.
But then, you hear like, that's just God stomping around up there. And you're like, oh, I feel so much better.
No, I'm scared of God.
Yeah. Hope he doesn't come through the roof.
Right?
So, yeah, no, I am no longer afraid of any of those things
Okay.
Okay, cool.
most of the time.
Scared of the dark, but I had a bedtime routine, so I think I was afraid of more than just the dark. So I had a lot of stuffed animals, and I had a,
I'm sorry.
I wasn't afraid of the stuffed animals, but I was very paternal even back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would take my stuffed animals, which were Smurfs,
Okay.
And
wait. Kinsey, do you know what a
Mhm.
Smurf is?
Yes,
Yes.
I've seen the movie.
shoebox, and I would put them all to bed
Okay.
in the shoebox.
Uh-huh.
And then I would take the shoebox and I'd put it right by my bed on the floor. But as I would put it on the floor, I would, because I didn't want anyone to know, I would check under my bed for monsters.
You're protecting the stuffed animals.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I did it under the guise of I'm just setting my stuffed animals next to the side of the bed. And as I'm setting it down, peek under the bed.
Oh, you used
I
your stuffed
used
animals.
them to be able to check under the bed to make sure there was nothing under there. So obviously that makes sense. That then my other fear was having any limb or part of a limb hang over the side of the bed, because whether I could see it or not, there was still probably something under the bed that was going to get me. Also, as part of the bedtime routine, I would check my closet because there's probably something in there.
So how did you feel when Monsters, Inc. came out?
I was an adult.
Did it stir up some past trauma?
It did. It did.
You got his Smurfs back out.
Yeah. And then I would check to make sure my window was locked,
Okay.
because I didn't want,
Crawling in.
all access points. I wanted to make sure
Yeah.
I was good.
Yeah, windows will hold back monsters.
Exactly.
So I hear the fear of what's under the bed or in the closet.
Mhm.
Also the fear of somebody knowing that you're scared.
Exactly.
So your Smurfs is a cover.
Well, because I would spend a lot of time, and I apologize. I think I've apologized since then, but I would make fun of my older brother because I got the new bedroom. There's 3 brothers. We were all in one bedroom until the second bedroom got finished. And then he moved over there as the older brother, but then didn't want to stay in there because he was afraid of the dark. So then I got that bedroom by myself. And so I made fun of him for being afraid of the dark. But come to find out, I was also afraid of the dark.
But you couldn't let him know
But I
that,
couldn't let
so
him
you
know,
could keep the
which is
room.
why I checked under the bed, without anybody knowing.
See,
Sounds like classic siblings.
right.
Yeah.
And what do I learn from that? It's all about risk reward, right?
That's
like
right.
weighing out the fear versus the benefit.
That's it.
We'll get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember as a kid going to Schlitterbahn, the hottest, coolest time in Texas. If you guys have been,
I've been to Schlitterbahn.
do
I
those-
will never go.
the soda straws, they're like the closed-in tubes, and it all dumps out into like murky river water.
We're talking about the one in New Braunfels, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
New Braunfels. And I was always scared to go down the soda straws because I just knew there was like a shark in the water waiting for me.
Wow.
Dark, murky water.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't see what was out there, so it could have been anything.
Mm-hmm.
It was a shark. Now,
Yes.
later in my adult years, I connected sharks don't live in fresh water.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what does? And this is why now I, as an adult, am afraid of Schlitterbahn or any water park is urine and other bodily
There are worse things than sharks.
exactly, which is why I'll never go to a water park because of my adult fear, which is that there's nasty stuff in that water.
Yeah, and I can confirm That is, I put it there.
That is not an irrational fear.
No.
Nope. Totally rational.
Yeah.
So I grew up and then started to go to the ocean where you can't see, because Texas Ocean, right?
Yeah.
Ocean.
Right.
Texas water, Port A or whatever. You can't see 5 feet out. And so I was like, there's sharks out there too. And I was scared of that. So it showed me that my fear is actually being out of control.
Oh,
Right? We're giving
wow.
up control.
It's insightful.
Yeah.
You really went psychoanalysis on that.
I've had a lot of time to think about this.
Do you think that if you were to go to like the Bahamas and you had an opportunity to go swimming in this crystal clear water, but you knew there were sharks in there, would you go in now?
Yeah, done did. So in my adult years, like, and we'll get into like Enneagram and Enneagram 7, motivated by fear, but just totally avoid it. So I have swam with sharks in Belize,
Oh.
and I signed up to cage dive with sharks in Florida.
When you signed up, so
Wow.
you didn't actually go.
It got rained out, inclement weather, but like,
Oh, air quotes around
I-
rained out.
yeah, in the future we will do this. So
Okay. Very
Yep.
cool.
yeah,
So it's not sharks.
So it's not sharks.
it's not sharks.
I
Control.
am still deathly afraid of wild animal attacks, mostly bears.
Okay.
Yeah.
Luckily, I don't have to worry about that around here. Otherwise, I think it would. But I
Right.
remember hiking in Colorado, and as
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to go to bed, my dad's like, "Hey, make sure there's no food in the tent.
Right.
Otherwise, the bear will treat you like a burrito." And so, just laying up at night, like I ate food before I got
Yeah.
in here.
That will
Just-
tend to set you up for a bit of fear.
Yeah.
But I don't know that that's an irrational. Well, it's irrational for me to be afraid of bears in this room. I get it. But
Yeah,
in the wild,
Mhm.
it seems like a good fear.
that's a part of it. Like some of these fears are rational; they're
Yeah.
helpful.
That's right.
So, how do you balance that?
Yeah. Cool.
How do you balance that? You have a fear of public speaking,
Mm-hmm.
but yet you're on stage and on this podcast.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think there's always going to be fears that are good that you need to have in place to protect you. But I think there's also a lot of fear. We're, talking about this that is rooted in pride, like trying to protect your pride. And there are things that you just have to overcome in order to grow outside of your comfort zone. And so if you're always going to be in your comfort zone, I think that really just ultimately leads to misery, like not growing or transforming. Like we're always going to be, you're just going to feel stuck. And so to be able to push yourself outside of that comfort zone and overcome those fears actually helps you grow as a person and become something that maybe is less fearful. Like I still don't like getting up on stage and public speaking, but I don't shake the entire time and not sleep for a week before
Right.
when I have to do it.
Anymore.
Anymore.
Yeah,
that was a very real reality for me for a long time. But it's not as strong as
Yeah.
it once was because I've done it now
That's right.
many times. So
And I think that's the risk reward. And I give that advice to people a lot. They're like, I don't know what's going to happen if I. You do know what's going to happen if you don't do it. You're going to stay the exact same. You're not going to gain or grow.
Yeah.
And so I always err on the side of just do it and see what happens. The worst case scenario is you're right back where you're at right now.
That's right.
So,
But I think most people are more comfortable with misery because they know that
oh,
than
yeah.
the unknown, which
Absolutely.
is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I say it's crazy. I do it too. But it's weird to think that we're even that fearful of the unknown that we're way more susceptible to just being miserable. Like we let ourselves just be miserable because we're just scared.
Yeah.
What is that saying? The devil you know is better than one you don't.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're comfort creatures. And so, yeah, we just choose to stay in our misery because we know it and know it well. And we're
And-
comfortable with it now.
And we talked about like that comfort around aspects of relationship. And so this conversation around unity, we talked about how it really does require vulnerability, but like fear is the great isolator.
Yeah.
Because if I let fear win, I'm never going to let you guys in, let my wife in, let good friends in. Like they'll never really know me in a way that really eliminates loneliness and isolation.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's worth overcoming when it's that irrational fear, because otherwise we're just stuck. That's that misery I think you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, and we were talking even about this whole spotlight effect. And if you try and overcome your fear like worst case scenario, you look stupid, or in a lot of these like emotional fears, like let's say you're scared of jumping off a cliff and you do it, you might die. But if you're scared of, these emotional things where it's putting yourself out there, being vulnerable,
Yeah.
like worst case scenario, you say something stupid, you look stupid.
That's right.
And it's weird that we're just so fearful of protecting our like ego or the perception that we want to have, that we just won't do it. It's like, that's
Yeah.
not even, like when you logically reason through it, it's not that scary,
That's right.
but it is.
It is. And it can control us.
Yeah. I think fear either controls you or you're controlling it. Like there is no
There's
like
no in
middle,
between. That's a good way to put it,
there is no middle ground.
which is crazy to think about. Because for an Enneagram 8 like myself, I don't want to be controlled by anything. And yet I do. I let it control me.
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't like that. I don't like where this went.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You are being controlled by something.
Don't bring that up when I'm being, shallow. Oh, looks like Chris is being controlled by his fear.
I'm going to start using that. And then I'm going to start using Zach's just fleeing from fear. And Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just fleeing from it. You don't have fear, but
Just
you do.
running away like a little boy.
Running.
It's controlling you as well.
Ouch.
Wait. So how's it controlling you?
It controls me all the time. I'm not denying that for sure.
It is funny. So we've talked about how we're all in like different triads in the Enneagram. We're all different types. We're all in, if you look at the widget personality type assessment, like we're all different there. It is interesting how fear can control us all differently.
Yeah. Which is why I think a lot of people, at least I know myself, I look at other people's fears and I don't understand. Like there's just a lack of understanding. I'm like, I don't get it. Like you're so like articulate and sharp and like you connect so well emotionally. I'm like, why wouldn't you want to, what are you afraid of? The public speak. You have like this superpower and you're like, so it's like we could live in that misunderstanding or we can literally overcome fear and have a conversation about like, and borrow other people's strength. But I just think we isolate even in that by not understanding.
Or not wanting to admit what you're actually afraid of.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people put fears out there that feel comfortable. Like, oh, I'm afraid of public speaking. But there's probably even a fear even deeper than actually just public speaking.
That's right.
But I don't want to say that. If I just say public speaking, then
Yeah, what are you really afraid of?
I'm like, okay, wait. Now I'm like processing through. I think it is fear of putting something out there in the universe to be critiqued.
Yeah.
Like that is terrifying to me.
Yeah.
And let's drill down one layer deeper.
Okay.
So if somebody critiques that, what are you scared of? Like they're going to feel.
I don't know if it's like I feel like I'm not good enough or that I've like let somebody down by saying something that was either offensive or wrong. I think I definitely have like a perfectionist tendency and I care a lot about just like the reputation that I uphold. And I don't want anything to cause somebody to, like, when they think of me, be like, well, they're stupid, or she doesn't know what she's talking about, or I can't believe she would think that. When, like, I don't know why I care about that, but I think I want relationships so desperately, and I want people to trust me that if I say something that then causes that to be in a disruptive state, that scares me.
Well, there's a reality to saying something from a public platform creates. It does create a polarization. It's
Totally.
polarizing.
It is.
Like people are going to be for it or against it. So you are putting yourself out there. The other thing you've mentioned too is this idea that you're not sure if you have anything valuable to add into all these different conversations, which is getting into more of a value proposition conversation, like what makes you valuable versus what you perceive what makes you valuable.
For sure. I take other people's experiences and I put them on this pedestal of, okay, this gives you credibility to speak on this because you've built a business for 25 years. Well, I've worked in business for 4 years, so nobody
Right.
wants to listen to me talk about business. or you're a professional athlete for your
Right.
whole life, and I'm like, hey, you should probably do this in your exercise routine. Like, nobody's gonna care.
Right.
But I think, yeah, it's not discrediting that I do have value to bring. It's just finding who's my audience.
Right. Well,
And-
and
or-
it just goes to show, like, this fear that we have, which isn't rooted in nothing.
Mhm.
So it is rooted. I mean, there's real things that we grapple with in our humanity, in our messiness, that we have to deal with, and or I say deal with. For me, it's confront.
Mhm.
It's like I have to look at it right in. I have to address it. For me, like the fear of betrayal, I got to thinking, like you said, like dive deeper. Well, what am I afraid of? Am I afraid that there's actually an enemy out there who hates my guts and is just looking, waiting for an opportunity to stab me in the back?
No.
No.
Mhm.
So I'm afraid of overall its value.
Hmm.
It's a value issue.
Mhm.
I don't think that there's an enemy out there, but I do think that people betray me. So what's the rub? Why, how can I draw that conclusion? So it's just, it's not thinking of myself in the right perspective.
Mhm.
It's more of an identity issue.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's interesting, like, to think about Enneagram would say a lot of this is tied back to some sort of childhood hurt or pain or
Yeah.
fear, right? Like there's a root fear behind it all. You said, even as we were prepping for this, like your biggest fear was of somebody betraying you. And I was like, well, my personality, I just expect it.
Yeah.
Like I just kind of beat them to the punch. I'm like, they're gonna betray me or take advantage of me. But hearing you go one level deeper, I'm like, I actually think maybe we're all the same.
Yeah.
Because really what I'm hearing is, do you have value to that person outside of transact? Like, do they actually see me? Am I known, heard, and valued? Or are they just using me to their own end?
Right.
Well, I feel that too. Like, do I have value to you? Like, am I worthy of your relationship? Do you actually see me? Or is this just transactional? Are you just trying to use me to get
Right.
somewhere else?
Mhm. Yeah, I think all fear is like, yes, an identity issue, but it's like a people, like, maybe this isn't, I'm just processing out loud now, but the fears that are like super rational, like, yeah, don't touch a hot stove, don't jump off a cliff, those kinds of things make sense. They're to protect you. But then all the other like irrational fears are just all around like relationship. It's
That's
like
right.
people. It's like, I'm not afraid of public speech. I'm afraid of what people will say,
That's right.
and so it's all just like this relational trauma when all we actually want, like you said, is to be known, heard, and valued. Like I
That's right.
truly believe that's what every single person on this planet wants. And we're all fighting for it, to have our place, to be seen. But we're fighting for it in like the wrong ways, which is what's causing all the disruption and disunity. But it's like we all want the same thing. I don't know why it's so hard
Yeah.
to get to that place.
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
What I think is also fascinating about this conversation is the reality of bravery. So, like, my perception of people who overcome fear is they are incredibly brave.
Mhm.
And so this is a silly example, but it's a true one. I will say never, but almost never get on a dance floor.
Mhm.
And it's not because I don't want to dance. It's because I don't want people to think I'm an idiot or a fool.
Yeah.
And so I would rather like isolate myself. Like I see everyone having fun.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So then I see, Kenzie just going for it. I'm just like, man, I wish I were brave like Kenzie.
It is.
Or isn't it crazy?
It's weird though, because it's like, I'm scared of what people will think in 90% of situations. You put me on a dance floor, I'm like, I don't give a rip what anybody
know.
thinks. I know I'm not a good dancer. I'm not trying to be a good dancer. I'm just having fun. I don't know why I can't do that in other situations.
Right. It's like, yeah, it's very all or nothing. It's like this
Yeah.
weird, and my wife is like incredibly brave when it comes to dealing with emotions.
Mhm.
I'm scared.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to talk about any of that stuff. But
Yeah.
she is just like, she'll wade right into it. She'll wade right into it even when she knows I'm feeling deeply, but I don't even know how to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just willing to. I'm like, oh man, I would be scared to death.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't it funny that we all have our triggers? Like everybody kind of has their thing and the way that they cope or mask fear.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll swim with sharks, but I'm not going on a dance floor. And I grew up Southern Baptist. Like that is traumatic for me.
Yeah.
And I feel totally inadequate. I have no value to add. And I don't want you to know that I can't dance. So I just beat you to the punch.
That's right.
Right? Like we do that a lot. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to prove myself inadequate. So I'm just not going to do it at all.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
No growth there.
Yeah.
But then it was cool because like, so Bradley, we all know Bradley Rapier,
Yeah.
Groovaloos, does these groove nights.
I know.
And I take my kid out and they're all dancing on the dance floor. And Eli, my 3-year-old, is just going for it with like reckless abandon, totally free. And it's the coolest thing on the planet to
know.
see him move without fear.
It's
Where-
yeah.
Where do you even, because you think about kids, they are so fearless. And then all of a sudden, like one day,
Especially relationally.
yeah. And
They
so
have
it's
no
like, where does
relational
that-
fear.
How do we, why are we teaching
You
our kids
you
that?
put 8
How?
kids, little kids, into a room, and all 8 kids will unify.
Mm-hmm.
Now there'll be bickering and yelling and along the way, but for the most part, they're not going to just go off into their corners.
Yeah. Well, I
What
think
happens?
I don't know.
the world and life and relationships teach us to be fearful,
Yep.
right? And so I taught my little brother when he was 5 to
Mhm.
ski black diamonds.
Mm-hmm.
And now I go back and I ski.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, I'm like, man, if I hit this wrong, like if I rolled, I'm blowing out my knee.
Yeah.
I see the medical bill, the
Yeah,
insurance.
do you think
like
we just
there's so
know
much
more of the
hanging in the balance.
consequences? Yeah.
Yeah. So some of it is ignorance,
Mhm.
is bliss.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is like taught experience that we've kind of held on to and like calcified our soul a little
Yeah.
bit.
I,
Or like
I totally think so.
Out of protection.
We have learned to protect ourselves
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
because I think we've misunderstood other people's own insecurities.
Mhm.
And what we do is we personalize it in a way
Yeah.
that makes their insecurities about me.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, it's just like, for me, I just go into massive self-protection mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's even like the whole stranger danger thing you're taught as a kid,
Yeah.
which there are psychos out there. But then you're taught that your whole life, and now every time I just see somebody out, and I'm
Now
like, oh
Kinsey
my
goes
gosh,
to a networking event.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
terrifying.
Stranger danger.
And it's heartbreaking. Like that does happen, but like the chances are so slim. But I look at any stranger, I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's still traumatizing
Yeah.
to this day.
Sorry, I couldn't get it out of my head. You just looking at Zach and I, stranger danger at a networking event. I'm so glad you don't do that at our networking events.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Our networking, no strangers.
Well, speaking of bravery, though,
But
like
some of the
going up
others.
to somebody you don't know and just starting a conversation is one of the most terrifying things in the world to me.
yeah.
Don't know why.
See, in that case, I have nothing to lose because I'm not exposing myself to betrayal.
But you don't have anything to lose on a dance floor.
I know.
It's
Other
just
than
weird.
look at a fool.
Like, why
Yeah.
do we just pick these things
Yeah.
that were like, that scares me, but this one doesn't, but this one does?
It's a good reminder that we are all in our own heads way too much.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Like if we lived out if we lived this life out in a way that put ourselves out there every single day, we would be so much more unified
Mm-hmm.
with the right people
Yeah.
on the right journeys.
Mhm.
But we just live in this like really irrational fear state so much that we just miss out. We just
Mhm.
isolate, and that's that misery.
Yeah.
Mhm. So what is something that you guys are doing right now to like overcome fear? An area that you're putting yourself out there or
For me, I'm starting to learn how to talk about it. Talk about my fear. And instead of making assumptions, I will, especially with my wife, I'll say, or I'll mention to her, hey, this happened. Like, and I can even feel myself as I'm doing it. I'm like trying to leave her breadcrumbs as much as just saying like, hey, this happened. I'm interpreting it through my fear that what you did was betrayal. But I know that that's not true, and I want to pursue things that are true. That's what I wish I could say in those moments.
Mm-hmm.
But what comes out is this, like, hey, when you said this, when you did this, I felt like it made me feel this way, or I just stumble around because I'm trying to very carefully um, talk about it, which is new for me.
Yeah.
Talking about my fear, even on this, like talking to you guys about my fear of betrayal, that's not easy to admit.
Mhm.
I don't like being afraid of anything, but just
Mhm.
that's what I'm doing. I'm just trying to talk about it more.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I feel like communication is huge in
Everything.
everything. Always
Yeah.
communication is the answer. I think for me, I'm realizing I'm very fearful of like wanting something, like really wanting it and going for it and then not getting it. Like to put yourself out there in a way says like, I want it. I did everything I could to get it and then I don't get it. Like I am terrified of that.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I'm in a season of figuring out, okay, I want to like really go for something to prove to myself that even if I don't get it, like going for it is worth it. And so I'm trying to figure out what that is, and that's scary to like even try and decipher like
Right.
what would I want? What do I want, to say? What do I want people to hear from me? What do I want relationally from people? And I think I'm just in a spot of trying to just decipher that, and then I will challenge myself to say it to people so that
Yeah.
they can hold me accountable. But right now I'm in a processing phase of like, okay, what do I actually want?
Yeah. What are you
Yeah.
going to go for?
I don't know. Stay tuned.
It's kind of exciting though.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
But it is exciting because I definitely don't want to be a person that lets fear limit what I'm capable of. So,
Yeah.
I think of that Jordan Rayner book, right?
mhm.
Where he's talking about going for the big goal. Because one, as you go for the big goal, there's less people that are willing to go for the big goal. And so your chances of success are better.
Yeah.
Also, what you learn in going for the big goal is going to serve you long term so much better.
Yeah.
Right.
I think he calls it the big, hairy, audacious goal.
Or
Yeah.
a BHAG.
A BHAG. Nice.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to come up with some
that's
of
for
What
you.
those.
Zach is not afraid of is throwing out those kinds of acronyms.
Nope.
Yeah. No, he has no fear.
Well, that's the funny thing for me. As I ask that question, I start processing. I'm not like comfort isn't a motivator for me. I'll jump off this or swim with the sharks. What is actually hard for me, I think, is I've made fear my motivator, like overcoming fear my motivator. So if there's not some level of fear, like, is Kinsey going to be mad at me if I miss this deadline? Then I won't do it. And so I'm almost treating fear as my motive, and it's a crummy motivation, right? Like, how do I tap into something else? So I think of this
Yeah.
old verse, right? You've quoted, I don't want to have a spirit of fear,
Mhm.
but of power, of love, and of a sound mind.
Right.
So how do I tap into those other things as my motivator, like a confidence or a power, knowing that I can do this and the vision is worth it. So I'm going to overcome any
Yeah.
cost. Love, like I'm doing this for others and not for myself.
Yep.
And then I think a sound mind ties back into that confidence
Mm-hmm.
and just assuredness on the path, right?
Do you feel like when you're describing that relationship with fear, are you using it like as an adrenaline?
Totally.
Okay.
Like it gets me fired up. I need a deadline or something pressing in order to go. And I've trained my brain
Yeah.
to look and be motivated by that.
Do you think it's all fears or just some fears as a motivator?
What do you mean?
Like, I think there's got to be still some things that you're fearful of that you're not just using as a motivator. Like, I think there are probably some things that are limiting you.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
No, there are things as a part of my journey recently, like I've gotten so good at running from fear
Mm-hmm.
that I would say I'm well adjusted or possibly over adjusted. I've stuffed them and moved on from them. And I'm actually having to go back and revisit those places
Mm-hmm.
in order to find healing and learn from those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're guiding me in ways that I don't even recognize.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one that I think
For me?
that I've recognized, and what's interesting is I've seen it get better over time,
Okay.
but there'll be things that you'll want to say to me that you will say to Kenzie instead.
Oh, 100%.
And so what's interesting about that is like we're talking about this whole conversation in the fight for unity.
Yeah.
When you give into that fear to tell me, directly, it like hurts our ability to unify over
Oh.
that thing.
Right. It magnifies my fear and it magnifies your fear.
It does.
Like,
because
why doesn't
now-
he trust me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Isn't it? It's just
And-
crazy. Yeah. How those things multiply. It's like, we bounce off each other in those
Mhm.
ways that are like, and it over amplifies the lies inside of our own head.
Yeah. You'll just have to come sit down with my counselor with me. Because a lot of that is rooted in childhood. Like, I had a slew of stepdads that were Enneagram 8s.
Yeah.
And so how does a 7 who can wing 8, and you guys are like, I don't even think you wing 8 because of this right here, because I'm
Right.
avoidant.
Yeah.
A 7 engage an 8 when I'm a 7 because of an 8.
Right.
Or an 8 hole is what I would say growing up.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. It's fascinating how we obviously have all these experiences, and we have
Mhm.
all of these fake experiences. We have experiences that we've lived out in our minds before they've ever happened.
Yeah.
And so that's the experience I'm trying to overcome, that false narrative experience where it's like, I've already played this out in my head. It doesn't go well. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that thing.
Well, it's like all fear is just this imaginary thing that we've a lot of time taken a past experience and then just blanketed over and be like, okay, it's going to be the exact same,
Yeah.
but it's still, probably a different, even if it's the same person, they're different. Like whether you want, there's just so many different levels that play into it that it can't be the exact same, but we imagine it to be that.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm sitting in this room and I'm thinking about myself now. Thanks for that. In this fear spiral. And I'm thinking about you guys and like connecting with you guys relationally.
Mhm.
I'm thinking about my team and my family and everybody else outside of this room too. And I realize just how prevalent fear can be
Mhm.
and what a driving force, how much power it has.
Yep.
And I think the only way that we overcome it is by somebody showing us that we can overcome it, right?
Yeah.
We borrow somebody else's confidence.
Yes.
They'll listen to a podcast with Vanessa Van Edwards soon where you have a grouchy person in a room and it's contagious. People become grouchy. If you're the happy person in the room, that can also be contagious. So I have to believe that this can be contagious also, that by modeling overcoming fear and fighting for unity, that others can aspire to do the same thing.
Totally. I think
So-
it's very attractive.
Yeah. It
Like-
absolutely is.
You want to be around people who will challenge you to make you better. And so I hope that's what we're doing for people.
Yeah. Affirmation's really critical in this path, to understand, number one, I'm not alone. Like
Mhm.
I've got fears like everyone else, and be able to put it out there, and for you to affirm me in that, be like, no, you got this. Whatever it is, you can dance, you can trust me, whatever it is, that's going to get me to take the step. But if I stay in my own head, I'm never going to overcome fear.
Mhm.
Let's go dance. I feel like to end the episode, we got to cue up that "Live Like You're Dying," and we'll just challenge
Tim
each of
McGraw
you
song.
guys to identify, like, start pressing in on what you're scared of and what's driving that, and then do something to overcome that fear for you, but also for those around you. So, be gentle in the comments, and we'll see you guys next time.